So Kanye made headlines again recently with his presidential bid, his tirade against his wife Kim, his mother-in-law Kris, and really anybody else who wanted to get some. And then he came back publicly and apologized to his wife Kim, and then Kim came out with a social media post talking about Kanye's struggles with bipolar and asking for compassion and empathy as they work through it. And as I watched this unfold, I thought to myself, you know what? When you get a look behind the curtain sometimes, you actually can learn some lessons about relationship, whether good or bad. And so in this situation, I want to talk today about 3 key principles that we can take away from the Kanye-Kim complication. That's what we'll cover today, right here on Relation Shots. Welcome to Relation Shots. My name is Eric Wooten. If this is your first time hanging out with us, welcome. We're so glad you're here. If you have not already done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button below and the bell notification so you don't miss any upcoming videos. All right, so if you haven't heard, Kanye West, aka Ye, aka 2020 presidential nominee, recently had a public meltdown in which he shared some real personal and private information about he and Kim, his wife's relationship, and he kind of went after the rest of the family too. He talked about how he wanted to divorce Kim. He talked about how they had considered abortion with their first child, North. And then he even went so far as to refer to his mother-in-law as Kris Jong-un, which it was pretty funny, you gotta admit, but not appropriate publicly. And so as I watched this little back and forth unfold, I thought, you know what, there are some relationship principles that we can learn and actually apply to our own relationships. There are some things done well and some things that were not done well. And so I want to talk about some relationship principles today that I think are applicable to our relationship. Also, I believe that the whole Kardashian women should get on board and learn some of these principles as well. Because I don't know if you've noticed a pattern, but the Kardashian women are either rescuers or they're poor judges of character when it comes to selecting a life partner. You look at Kris with Bruce, clear mental health issues. You look at Kim with Kanye, clear mental health issues. You look at Kourtney with Scott Disick, some drinking issues, some stints in rehab. You look at Khloe with Lamar and his famous Nevada brothel undoing. And so you see, again, this is not the topic of the video, but a pattern worth looking at. So what I really want to talk about today is I want to talk about 3 principles of relationship that we noticed in this public exchange between Kim and Kanye. Some were upheld, and I'll talk about that, and some were broken, and we'll talk about that. So the first principle I want to talk about is just cover publicly, but criticize privately. Now, I didn't say cover up. I didn't say endorse their foolish behavior. It does need to be dealt with. But when in public, you need to cover your spouse. Kanye said and did some things that may be irretrievable as far as harm to some of the relationships in his family. He went out there, he put stuff out there, he went ahead and attacked, but we're not to use public forums to take shots at our spouse, to criticize, to condemn our spouses. What we want to do publicly is we want to cover them. And yes, that means for some of you that little cryptic, passive-aggressive social media post where you think nobody knows exactly who you're talking about. You're just kind of throwing something out in general. But you really want your spouse to know you're not happy and you're not afraid to go public in the future if you need to. Those count as well. We want to cover their weaknesses and we want to elevate their strengths when in public. We want to affirm them. We want to compliment them. That means publicly social media wise. That means with groups of friends. That means to family, whatever it looks like. Our job is not to use the public forum to try to get at them and get what we want done. We need to do it in private. Again, I'm not saying cover it up and don't deal with it. I'm saying do it one-on-one in private. Do it in private with a counselor, with your tight-knit community. But the principle is we want to always cover our spouse publicly and save the criticism for in private. Principle number 2 is study your spouse. Become a student of their struggles. If your spouse has a mental health issue, It's incumbent upon you to learn as much as you can about it. Accompany them to doctor's appointments, talk with counselors about it, get online and read articles, read books about it, but you need to gain understanding of what they're dealing with, because greater understanding and greater knowledge will in turn lead to greater empathy. Don't just look at the mental health issue as their struggle, something they got to deal with. This is something you need to learn about and become an expert on. I thought in this instance, Kim did a fantastic job. She publicly came out and reminded people that her husband struggles with bipolar, said it's a painful and difficult journey at times, but then she affirmed him by saying this does not diminish his dreams or his creativity, and she asked for empathy and compassion in the midst of them working through it. Bravo to Kim. This is the way you do it. You learn what your spouse is dealing with. Then she covered her spouse, principle number 1. So whatever it is that your spouse struggles with, maybe it's an insecurity from the past, maybe it's a mental health issue, maybe it's their personality, but whatever it is, you need to study your spouse. You need to become a student of their struggles so you can engage with them in the process. This is an area where I thought Kim did great, and Kanye even mentioned he did not do a good job covering Kim, but she did a fantastic job on principle number 2, which is study your spouse, become a student of their struggles. Principle number 3 is you are a part of your spouse's healing process. Listen, when you stood at the altar or wherever you stood and said, I do, you essentially said, I got you. Which means I don't care what it is. It's childhood trauma, it's insecurities, it's past relationship drama, whatever it is, you do not get to say, that's your issue, that's not my issue. I don't care if they came into the relationship with it. You do not get to say, I didn't cause that, so I shouldn't have to make up for it. You don't get to say, that's your issue, so you need to figure out and deal with it yourself. Don't keep putting it on me. Yes, they do need to individually, and all of us individually need to take care of past trauma. We need to do the own work of healing, and we need to do the work of getting healthy for our relationships. But as a spouse, you are a part of your spouse's healing process, whether the damage was caused by you or the damage was caused by somebody else before you ever met them. You're a part of that process. Here's what that looks like. If your spouse has an insecurity, maybe people in the past have been unfaithful in relationships and you feel like they unfairly are jealous or critical of you, you don't get to say, hey, I've never been unfaithful. That's your issue. Deal with it. Do they need to work on some of those trust issues? Absolutely. But do you need to do everything in your power to help make them feel secure? Absolutely. You may need to adjust your behavior. You may need to not have so many friends of the opposite sex. You may need to communicate a little bit better about where you are and not have gigantic gaps of time where nobody knows where you're at. There's things you need to do in the process to help them feel more secure about the relationship. You are a part of your spouse's healing process. That's what happened when you said, I do. They own their personal healing, but you're right there by their side. You're their co-pilot. You're their ride or die. You're their person who's with them, who says, I got you for the rest of your life. So what it means is that they are responsible for personal healing, but you are a part of the healing process. So there's just 3 principles that I think we can apply to our relationships based on what we saw in the Kim and Kanye exchange. Now listen, none of us are 100% on anything in our lives, but there are some things and principles that if we don't follow, they can cause great harm and destruction in our relationship. These are just 3 that I noticed in this latest exchange with Kim and Kanye. Hopefully this was helpful to you. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below and talking a little bit more about this. And if you think about this would be helpful to anybody you know, and especially the Kardashian family, go ahead and share it with them. I look forward to seeing you next time right here on Relation Shots.